Solomon wakes with a fever burning like coals under his skin. For 3 days he has drifted in and out of darkness, hearing the far crack of the overseer's whip, the scrape of boots on dirt, the whisper of prayers from neighboring cabins. The Whitfield plantation does not wait for the sick. A sick slave is a broken tool, and broken tools are tossed aside. Then a cool cloth touches his brow and cuts through the haze. He forces his eyes open. In the dim light of dawn, the master's wife sits beside his bed. Eleanor Whitfield. Her pale hands wring out water in a tin basin. She should not be here. No white woman, least of all the mistress, should be in a slave's cabin alone. His heart lurches and he tries to rise. "Please, ma'am, you shouldn't." She presses him gently back. "Drink this," she says, steady as a church bell. The cup smells bitter. He obeys. Her blue eyes, usually cold when she instructs the house staff, hold something he has never seen aimed at him. Concern. He does not know she has been watching him for months, memorizing his quiet habits, waiting for a reason to cross this forbidden threshold. The fever breaks. Strength trickles back. She returns before sunrise each morning, steps careful on damp grass always gone before the overseer's rounds. She brings strange herbal medicine, warm cornbread, slices of smoked ham, and a look in her eyes that tightens his stomach with dread. On the 5th morning he asks the question that has hovered between them like thunder in a summer sky. "Why are you helping me?" Eleanor glances at the door, then leans close enough for him to smell the lavender water in her hair. "Because you can read and write," she whispers. The words punch the breath from his chest. He learned as a boy in secret, taught by his mother, Esther, who once served in the home of a northern teacher before she was sold south. Literacy is a brand that brings the whip, the stocks, the loss of fingers, or worse. "I've seen you study the newspapers Master Whitfield throws away," she says. "I've watched you trace letters in the dirt behind the smokehouse when you thought no one was looking. Your fingers make words." He wants to deny it. Instead, he waits for the trap to spring. "I need your help," she says, voice fraying. "My sister in Boston is dying. My husband forbids all letters to my family." He reads what comes, burns most of it, and calls it housekeeping. One letter slipped through while he was away. "I need to answer her, and I cannot do it alone." Solomon hears the full danger in her request. She wants him to write replies, then pass them north through a sympathetic merchant. If the master discovers this, it won't just be a whipping. It will be a public lesson. He chooses each word carefully. "If he finds out, he will kill me slowly." Eleanor's gaze does not look away. "I know." She speaks like someone who has lived with fear for a long time. He could refuse. She could betray his secret out of panic or spite and still ruin him. The silence stretches. He says he will help, but he needs something in return. Her expression hardens. A slave bargaining with a mistress is a violation of every rule they have breathed since birth. "What could I possibly give you?" "Information about my daughter," he says. "Lily was 9 when she was sold to the Harrington plantation. Your husband moves in their circles. Find out if she's there, alive." The words scrape his throat. He sees Lily's small hand in his, the pattern his late wife braided into their daughter's hair. The raw curve of grief on the day they were torn apart. Eleanor considers. Asking directly would raise questions, but she writes to Martha Harrington about household matters. It might be possible. It will be difficult. Not impossible. That morning an agreement takes root. Eleanor slides a folded letter from her sleeve. "Read this when you're alone. I'll return tomorrow with paper and ink." "Can you write in a woman's hand?" "Yes," he says. "My mother taught me many styles. She said it could save my life." When she leaves, he hides the letter under a loose floorboard and goes to the fields. Sun hammers the cotton white. Thorns bite his fingers. The whip sings somewhere to the left. Still, he thinks about the paper resting in his floor. Every line he will write is a kind of noose. But the chance to learn about Lily pulls harder than fear. Night falls. By a candle stub gathered drop by drop from the kitchen chandeliers, he opens the letter. Catherine writes with elegant loops, telling of family gossip, then slipping into the sickness that carries her away one breath at a time. "Please, Ellie, write me before it is too late." Solomon folds the paper with shaking hands. He does not tremble from fear. He trembles from hope, a dangerous thing. Next dawn, Eleanor returns, breath short, wrist hidden by a sleeve that fails to cover the bruise at its edge. Her husband came home early from Montgomery in a foul mood. He made his displeasure known. The words are simple. The meaning is not. She lays out paper, a lidded inkwell, 2 quills, and a slim book bound in worn leather. What is that? He asks. She says it is a collection of poems by Phyllis Wheatley, a woman enslaved who wrote so brilliantly Boston's learned men forced themselves to admit it. They published her words in 1773. Eleanor traces the letters on the cover. I thought you might draw strength from her. A book is more dangerous than paper. Paper can be explained away. A book is proof that cannot be forgiven. Still, the hunger to read is stronger than caution, and he hides it under the same board as the letter and the tiny treasures of his life. A blue bead from his mother, a carved doll for Lily, a scrap from his wife's dress. They sit at his rough table. He suggests the letter should be gentle and careful, full of memory but emptied of anything that could upset a dying woman. Eleanor asks if he taught Lily to read. No, he says. He wanted to protect her. The less attention a child draws, the safer she is. Knowledge is power, Eleanor says. That is why they fear it in your hands. You speak like you are not one of them, he says. She tells him the truth. She grew up in Massachusetts. Her parents opened their home to abolitionists and fugitives. She married Charles Whitfield because he seemed modern and humane. The mask fell only when it was too late. Her father dead. Her mother remarried and gone to Europe. The past erased. In the South, she learned what it means to be someone's property, while pretending to be his partner. Then she asks him to call her Eleanor when they are alone. He tries the name like a fresh step on thin ice. He asks why she will risk herself to ask after Lily. Her composure cracks. She once had a child, a boy who lived 3 days. Her husband blamed her and began to beat her where the bruises wouldn't show at dinner. With the truth laid bare between them, the line that separates mistress and slave bends into something new. 2 people trapped in the same house of cruelty. They write. He mimics a gentle, flowing hand, weaving childhood summers and inside jokes and all the small kindnesses that keep a life from crumbling. When she leaves with the letter tucked to her heart, his little room feels bigger, as if a shutter has opened. He reads Wheatley by candlelight, arguing with the faith in the poems, then finding the fierce core beneath them. A mind refusing chains, no matter the words it must speak aloud. At dawn, a shadow slips from the wall outside. Marcus, the master's valet, has watched Eleanor's visits and heard enough to guess the rest. He files what he knows in the locked cabinet behind his eyes, intending to spend it later. The days fall into a rhythm. 5 more letters go north. Eleanor harvests news like a careful gardener at the edges of polite conversation. Solomon works under the sun and recites Wheatley silently to keep from breaking. One icy morning she arrives with breath bright in the air. I have news, she says. About Lily, she is alive. She has been moved from the fields to the house. She reads to her mistress in the evening. The word reads shakes him. Joy floods his chest, sharp as pain. Pride follows. Fear trails behind it like a shadow. Reading can bring the lash. Still, someone has seen Lily as more than hands. Eleanor hands him a copy of the lines describing his daughter. Slight but healthy, uncommonly bright. He traces the words with his finger as if they were her cheek. There is more, Eleanor says. The Harringtons will attend the harvest ball here next month. They often bring house servants. Lily may come. Hope hits him so hard he has to sit. After 3 years he might see his child. Eleanor places her hand over his, a shock of human warmth in a life measured by commands. Then her face tightens. She has a second letter from Boston. Catherine is failing. Eleanor plans to go to her, and not return. He warns that her husband will never allow it. I'm not asking, she says. She has sold her jewelry through the merchant. She has a plan. She wants Solomon to come with her. And Lily. The room tilts. Freedom is a word he has folded small and tucked deep. How, he asks. The Underground Railroad, she says. A conductor in Montgomery who travels disguised as a livestock trader. The harvest ball will be a storm of visitors and lanterns and music. In that confusion, 3 people could slip away. The risks are oceans wide. Still, she speaks with a clarity that carries its own light. If we are caught, we die, she says. If we succeed, Lily grows up free. She learns openly. She writes her own story. Isn't that worth any risk? He is forming his answer when a hard knock turns their blood to ice. Overseer Jenkins stands in the doorway, hat low, whip at his side. Your husband is looking for you, he says to Eleanor, heavy on the final word. The lie comes smooth from her tongue. I was instructing Solomon about guest bedding and firewood. Jenkins nods as if accepting this, but his eyes collect small details. The nearness of their hands, the steadiness of her voice, the way Solomon will not look up. The master wants to see you too, he tells Solomon. Now. Dread crawls up Solomon's spine as he follows Jenkins past the kitchen garden, past the smokehouse, past the graves with no names. The big house is a world he enters only to carry furniture or scrub floors. Today trunks are being loaded into a carriage. On the veranda stands Charles Whitfield, neat as a coin, giving instructions to Marcus, who looks at Solomon with a thin curl at the edge of his mouth. A man who has struck a bargain with himself. Solomon climbs the steps with his heart beating like a hand at a locked door. He whispers weakly to steady it. Love of freedom lives in every breast. It pants for deliverance. Whether deliverance will come through escape or through the end of breath, he will soon learn. The study smells of bourbon and leather and the faint sweetness of lavender that clings to Eleanor's dresses. Books line the walls. Paintings stare down with smug, powdered faces. The door closes behind Solomon with a wooden sigh. Whitfield sits behind a desk that could feed 20 people if chopped for firewood. Eleanor stands at the window, body straight, hands tight on the curtain. Solomon keeps his eyes low. Do you know why I called you here? Whitfield asks. No, master. Whitfield swirls his drink. Marcus tells me you've been seeing a lot of my wife. Visits to your cabin. Long ones. The accusation is silk over steel. Eleanor answers first, calm as a winter pond. I am overseeing guest preparations for the harvest celebration. Solomon has been receiving my instructions. Whitfield smiles without light, curious. Jenkins has managed such things for 7 years. He rises, circles the desk, and stops so close that Solomon can count the red threads in the whites of his eyes. Marcus searched your cabin, he says, and found something interesting. From the drawer, he lifts the worn leather book of Wheatley's poems. The room narrows to the grip of that book in the master's hand. A slave who reads, Whitfield says, soft as a whetstone. And not just any book. Abolitionist verse. Given to you by my wife. Charles, Eleanor starts. The slap comes so fast the sound arrives late. She staggers against the window frame and catches herself. Solomon's muscles lock like iron. He stares at a knot in the floor and swallows his rage like poison. Who taught you to read? Whitfield demands. Was it her? Solomon must choose which blade to fall on. He tells a version of the truth. I learned as a boy, he says. I found the book in the trash. Whitfield studies him as if he were a cracked plate. Liar. The book bears her family's plate. What else are you two conspiring about? Before he can answer, the door opens. Marcus enters with papers in his hands. The letters, the map, the copied note about Lily, the little world they built folded into evidence. Hidden under a floorboard, he announces. Whitfield reads. His face passes through stages. Surprise, disbelief, the slow red of a rising storm. Planning to escape, he says. Voice quiet enough to make the glass tremble. My own wife. With a slave. He looks at Eleanor. Blood beads where his ring split her lip. He spits the ugliest question. Were you sharing his bed? Or only betraying me on paper? It isn't what you think, she says, and he lifts his hand again. Jenkins, he calls without looking away from Solomon. 50 at the post. Everyone watches. Yes, sir, the overseer answers, stepping forward to take Solomon's arm. And after, Whitfield adds, send word to the trader in Montgomery. I'm selling him downriver. The sugar plantations always need bodies. Not many last a year. Eleanor lunges as if a wire cut free inside her. He has a daughter, she pleads. Whitfield turns on her with the bored efficiency of a man ordering new chairs. I can do what I like with my property, he says, and I'm locking you in your room until further notice. Perhaps a rest cure in the mobile asylum will improve your manners. People there have a talent for curing inconvenient wives. Fear hollows her face, but her eyes remain bright with something that refuses to die. Jenkins marches Solomon outside. The yard fills as field hands and house staff are herded into a blunt circle. Some stare. Some cannot. Children are pulled behind skirts. Thomas stands with the scars on his back raised like old rope. Old Jacob lowers his eyes and whispers Solomon's name as if it were a prayer. The post is a rough thing stained dark by memory. They strip Solomon's shirt and bind his wrists high. The wood presses into his chest. The world shrinks to breath and the hiss of the whip uncoiling. Pain arrives clean and total. Sound leaves the world and returns with the second stroke. He recites Wheatley inside his skull, each line a stepping stone across fire. Through thickest glooms look back. The crowd holds its breath. The whip finds the same path again and again until all paths are one. Blood runs into his waistband. Sweat burns the wounds like salt. Somewhere in the house a woman screams. He does not know if it is Eleanor or the echo of a scream that has always lived in these walls. He builds a room in his mind made of words. In that room, Lily stands beneath a northern sky holding a book. She reads aloud with a voice steady as rain. He cannot hear the words, but he knows they are about rivers that do not end in chains. When he falls into darkness, the falling is slow, as if the world is careful not to break what remains of him more than necessary. He wakes on the dirt floor of a cabin to the rattle of a cart, the scrape of a crate, the taste of iron. Every movement says downriver. The traitor will come. He will be hauled south where the work kills men by inches. Before the thought can strangle him, another thought spreads like light under a door. Lily is alive, she reads. If he cannot reach her, perhaps she will reach herself. Perhaps the story will end where the air is cold and clean. The plantation returns to its relentless rhythm. Cotton is weighed. Ledgers are tallied. The dogs sleep in the shade. Yet something small and hard has shifted. Mary with the new baby watches the post and decides that if a chance ever comes, she will run at night and not look back. Old Jacob sharpens a chisel and thinks of a door he might loosen. Thomas counts his scars and counts the strong backs around him and wonders about numbers and timing. Marcus folds the reward money he expects to earn into his imagination and does not see how close he stands to the edge of a fire. In her locked room, Eleanor presses her forehead to the window glass and makes a plan out of bones and breath. She will not go to an asylum. She will not die of someone else's idea of medicine. If they push her into silence, she will cut a hole in the silence with words and pass a message through it. She studies the latch, the hinges, the distance to the ground, the hours when the guard outside drinks too much coffee and stares too long at the magnolias. She remembers the conductor's name in Montgomery and the route on the map that is now in Whitfield's desk. She folds the route into memory and burns the paper inside her mind. Days bend and do not break. Solomon's back scabs over and splits each time he draws breath. He cannot lie flat. He cannot lift his arms without seeing stars. Still he practices standing. He moves like a man who plans to walk. He watches the horizon with eyes that can sort a cloud from a dust plume. He listens for unfamiliar hooves and guesses the traitor will arrive after the next rain, when the roads are softer and a chained man stumbles more. He thinks of his mother's voice teaching letters by the light of a coal stolen from the big house kitchen. He thinks of Sarah's hands braiding Lily's hair. He thinks of the first time he hid a scrap of newspaper under a mattress and felt the thrill of a secret that belonged to him alone. He thinks until thinking hurts less than moving. Night again. Crickets insistent. A lantern slides across the yard. The door opens. Not Jenkins. Not Marcus. Eleanor. Hair undone, cheek healing yellow at the edges, eyes steady. She moves fast and quiet, sets a small bundle on the floor and kneels. Inside the bundle are salve, a little bread, a short note in a hand that could be any woman's. The salve will keep you from fever, she whispers. The bread is fresh. The note is a memory she asks him to hold if he can hold nothing else. He tells her she should not be here. She says she has never stopped being here since the morning she stepped over his threshold with a basin of water. Her voice is low and fierce. The traitor comes tomorrow. They will send you south at first light. I cannot stop it. But I can do one thing. She looks at the wall as if it holds the rest of the sentence. He asks what thing. She leans close. If the Harringtons bring Lily to the harvest ball, I will see her. I will tell her that you live. I will tell her you love her. I will tell her to read to anyone who will listen, until she reads herself free. He shakes his head. The risk is a cliff. She nods anyway. The risk is a cliff, she agrees. And sometimes you step off because the cliff is between you and the only road. She takes his hand. For a breath, the two of them exist outside the rules written by men who drink bourbon over ledgers. Then she squeezes once and disappears into the dark. Morning brings wheels and chain. The trader smells of pipe smoke and bad teeth. He counts Solomon's scars like they are notches on a musket and writes a number in a little book. Jenkins signs. Marcus watches. Whitfield does not appear. He prefers an empty space where a man used to be. They load Solomon into a wagon with 3 others. The road to the river is rutted. The sun lifts and the wagon slows for a bend where the trees lean in. For a moment all the world is leaves and light. Solomon closes his eyes. In the green hush he makes a vow without words. He will breathe and then breathe again. For as long as breath can be taken, he will keep the poems inside him like coals. He will watch for chances even if they are small as a thumbprint. He will not let the story end where other men say it ends. He will leave a sign for Lily any way he can, in a hymn hummed slow, in a notch cut under a railing, in a name scratched where a hand can feel it in the dark. Back at Whitfield, the harvest ball spills music and perfume into the night. Carriages arrive. Lanterns swing. Laughter climbs the veranda and spills down the steps. In that glitter, Eleanor moves like a ghost with a purpose. She smiles and pours and listens. She follows the silver sound of Martha Harrington's bracelets to a quiet side hall and sees a girl standing with perfect posture, hands folded, eyes alert, slight but healthy, bright, a faint gap between her front teeth, the shape of a face Eleanor has seen in the rough strokes of a father's memory. Lily, she says softly, as if trying the sound of the future. The girl looks up. Eleanor cannot say all that must be said, so she chooses the first true thing. I knew your father, she whispers. He asked me to tell you he loves you. The girl's eyes shine without spilling. She nods once, the kind of nod that saves a life by saving a piece of it. She is called away before Eleanor can say more. But the thing that needed saying has been said. At the river, the boat groans under freight and men in chains. Solomon steps on board with his back burning and his face composed. He looks up the length of the river that will carry him away from everything he knows, and toward a place meant to grind him into sugar. He does not pray for miracles. He prays for openings. He prays for the stubborn, ordinary persistence of breath. Night falls again. The boat slides south. Somewhere far behind, a woman in a locked room presses her fingers to a window and plans. Somewhere to the north, words travel through the mail in careful loops and hushes and reach a sick sister who smiles to see her name. Somewhere in a house lit by crystal and oil, a young girl stands at the edge of a dance she does not attend, and whispers to herself that she will keep reading until the words open into a road. The system grinds on like a mill. And yet, something has shifted. The seeds are in the ground. They need rain and time and the brave patience to push through hard soil. The whip cannot touch a seed once it is under earth. It can only strike the ground above. Solomon watches the black ribbon of the river and thinks of a line from Wheatley that he has said so often it feels like his own. Love of freedom lives in every breast. It cannot be taught out, beaten out, sold out. It waits, it pants for deliverance. He breathes again, and again, and again.